Hi, I'm Alyssa, your free range psychic. Today is July 10th, 2022, and today I am going to do a past life study on Tucker Carlson as the possible reincarnation of Jesse James. Now, I got this information from my guides months and months ago, but I don't know, the idea Tucker Carlson being the reincarnation of Jesse James just kind of floored me, and I doubted it. But I mean, it's okay to doubt these things. This is just what my guides told me, so I decided to finally go ahead and do this past life reading, because a lot of people have been asking me to do one on Tucker Carlson. I think there's similarity if you look at the intro there and the comparison of the photographs and their lives too. So I'm going to trust my guides and go with this one. It seems so outlandish, so I kind of put it on hold, but I thought recently it's time to bring it out. You can let me know what you think. My information is in the description box below and at the end of the musical interlude that comes at the very end of this reading. And I am available for personal readings, past life, anything in the present. I'm a medium, and I introduce you to your guardian angels if you wish. So getting that out of the way, let's get into this reading. So I know this is a little tedious. I apologize. Getting into the minutia of the past lives of these people in terms of the information that comes with the past life and then with the present incarnation, but I'll just kind of try to summarize it for you. So Jesse Woodson James, born September 5th, 1847, dies April 3rd, 1882, American outlaw, bank train robber, guerrilla, and leader of the James Younger gang, raised in Little Dixie area of western Missouri. His family, including himself, maintained strong Southern sympathies. He and his brother, Frank James, joined the pro-Confederate guerrillas known as the Bushwhackers, operating in Missouri and Kansas during the American Civil War. They were followers of William Cantrill and Bloody Bill Anderson, accused of committing atrocities against Union soldiers, civilian abolitionists, including the Centralia massacre in 1864. After the war, they became bank robbers, robbed stagecoaches and trains across the Midwest. In the process, they gained national fame, popular sympathy, despite the brutality of their crimes. And this is in part, or I just would say mainly maybe, because of the revisionism of the famous journalist I believe his name was Edwards, Frank Edwards. It's somewhere in here. I'll correct it when I come across it. So I did a past life reading on this guy, actually, as the possible past life of Alex Jones. And let me see if I can find it in these notes. He was this journalist who initially was high up in the Confederacy, serving a Confederate general, and then he becomes a journalist writing for, I think, the Kansas City Star. And this was a huge push after the Civil War by certain pro-Confederacy sympathizers to revision or alter or attempt to alter people's perception of what really went on, to put their side in a better light, to glorify the Confederacy. And you can see that in I think during the James Crow era, all the statues of Lee and the other generals of the Confederacy are being erected. And, you know, this is also the Ku Klux Klan and other, I would say, guerrilla type groups that are still promoting slavery and racism and trying to push back rights. And they live on to this day. The Civil War was never really resolved in the way that it should have been, I think, with a lot of these personalities and groups allowing to proliferate in certain areas because of the pro-Confederate sympathy of even maybe the, you know, governors and the legislatures of various states, which still is occurring, as we know. And that was what brought Jesse James to this kind of anti-hero stature that has now become legend. So Jesse James and his band of outlaws carry on, and they, you know, are, even though at some point most of his band of criminals gets arrested or murdered, Jesse James somehow evades justice until he is assassinated by Bob Ford, and I think Bob Ford's brother's also involved. They betrayed him. They were the only two people, I guess, he trusted in the end, and he was staying with them. And behind the scenes, the governor of, I believe, Missouri got them to commit to assassinating Jesse James for a reward, and they did. Bob Ford shot him in the back as he was adjusting some picture on the wall, having put his guns down. So that is kind of a nutshell of the story of Jesse James. And apparently he was extremely brutal man, psychopath. It doesn't seem like any of these Robin Hood type personas that they tried to put on him were really ever verified. And I did have a comment, I think, that when I was doing the Alex Jones past life, that her family was somehow related to them, and she said that whenever the Jesse brothers were going to come visit, the mother of the two younger girls who lived in that household, she'd hide them in the attic until the boys had gone, because that's how much she trusted them. I'm still trying to find the name of that journalist, see if I got it correct. And yeah, please go ahead and find the video on Alex Jones, or maybe I'll post it on my community page to check that out, because he was very much involved. And it makes sense because Alex Jones is a revisionist, and so is Tucker Carlson, really. And it's, here it is. It's not Frank Edwards. It's John Newman Edwards. I knew I had it wrong. He was the founder of the Kansas City Times, a former Confederate cavalryman campaigning to return former secessionists to power in Missouri. He publishes all these letters proclaiming Jesse James is innocent, and some written by James asserting his innocence, and over time they become political in tone. And James denounces the Republicans in power at that time, who are kind of like the Democrats now. James becomes a symbol of Confederate defiance of federal Reconstruction policy. So that is very garbled information about Jesse James. Please, I always urge you to go ahead and research yourself, or tell me stories that you know. I'm sure there's historians there listening and who know far more about this than I do. So Tucker Carlson is born Tucker McNair Carlson, May 16th, 1969. His biological mother was the artist Lisa McNair. So Tucker Carlson's father's name was Dick Carlson, and he has a kind of interesting history where he was kind of adopted for a couple years, and then, he was fostered for a couple years, then adopted by a wealthy family, and he becomes a journalist. They call him like a gonzo journalist, somebody who, I think a gonzo journalist is somebody who's pretty aggressive and kind of shows up and interviews people unexpectedly and just tries to get into the heart of things. And he is with his wife, Lisa McNair, for 9 years, and then they separate. In that time, they have Tucker and his brother. I think his brother's name is Buckley. And then in 1979, he remarries to Patricia Carlson, who is the heiress to the Swanson family fortune. That's Swanson Frozen Meals. And then they send off little Tucker to boarding school. It's such a sad tale here. And this boarding school in Switzerland, I have not yet been able to find out why he gets kicked out of it, but he's only there for a short time, gets kicked out of that boarding school. Then he's sent to this boarding school called St. George, and that's in Rhode Island. Then he goes to Trinity College, apparently not a great student, gets into a lot of mischief, and not the sharpest student in the in the bunch there, but that might not be because he's lesser intellectual acumen. Maybe he just doesn't apply himself, and I think he has to stay in Trinity an extra year after having like a 2.1 grade average at the end of the 4 years, and he is able to graduate finally with a bachelor's in journalism in I think 1991. Then he applies for the CIA. They reject him. Why? I think it's pretty clear. I think he's got a pretty checkered background here for the CIA to take him. But that's only allegedly regarding why I think they didn't take him, but they don't take him. And he decides to follow his father's footsteps into journalism, and he does pretty well, I think. He starts out writing for a paper that's owned by the Heritage Foundation, and then various other newspapers, and he Oh, I forgot to say about his father. His father actually ended up being the president of the Board of Public Broadcasting and became an ambassador to the Seychelles. And also ran Voice of America. That's pretty high profile. And so over time, he works for CNN. He has a show at MSNBC. And then in 2009, he works for Fox. He gets hired by Fox News. And he is now one of the most extreme Trumpian voices, and I would want to say voice of Russia for Fox, and he's more and more outrageous, and we wonder how he continues to be able to spew his lies on Fox and be as outrageously evil. He doesn't seem to have any boundaries. He likes to push the boundaries regarding ultra right-wing extremism and finding friends, it seems, or friendly voices amongst, the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and, of course, MTG, Matt Gaetz, all those people. And he seems to be more and more an outlier to me, as he is really a mouthpiece now, it seems, for Putin and for Russia and for Trump. And we wonder how long that's going to last. So now we'll get into the reading. Of course, the card that they both get, and when I do these, I'm using the Gilded Tarot, by the way, by Ciro Marchetti for this reading. And then also at the end, there'll be a oracle card by Sacred Earth Oracle by Toni, Camine, Salerno. The Devil. So they're both coming from this dark energy. When I do these readings also, I ask my guides to show them to me psychically. So these are cards that they picked out. They also showed me the past life, and now they're explaining why and how these cards that they picked are explaining how these lives overlap and maybe how they differ. But they both are coming from the same energy. And this is the card of the narcissist. Often, or if not often, always, I should say, this comes up for Trump. This kind of desire to create chaos and division and to be anti-authority, to be very much trying to bring on an age of authoritarianism and darkness. Of course, the devil would support slavery and the Ku Klux Klan and Putin. This is all in. There's no real morality here, just a desire to destroy and to see humanity sink to a lower level than it already is, to bring it on, Above, two cards. One is the Seven of Swords. The other is the Moon. And my guides say this is both Jesse James, who is a good card for like a bank robber, for a thief, somebody who's a guerrilla fighter, somebody who's doing things from in the shadows. Their destruction comes in nefarious ways, and they seek to do things in a very, I want to say, a indirect way, but we don't see them robbing the bank. We hear about it later. They have ulterior motives here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And they do things in the dark and in secret. And they're very much aware of what they're doing, and coming back for more here, wanting to. I've got 5 swords. I'm leaving these two for the time being, but I'm going to come back for them too. The Moon is about revisionism. It's about illusion. And Jesse James certainly worked with John Newman Edwards to create this illusion about his persona. And Tucker Carlson is definitely doing the same for the I don't know whether to call it the Republican Party or the Trump Party or the Putin Party, whatever this party is, and to bring on confusion and doubt and to obscure. That is Tucker Carlson's superpower. I'm not saying it, I'm just asking the question. And then he'll ask a question that is obviously a statement, a judgment, but it comes with a question mark at the end. And this is to make people doubt their own truth and to be more receptive to illusion. And this is a good card for Fox News too, because it has a mask of trying to tell you that this is the truth, but for entertainment purposes only, so it can't get sued because it's going to just be spewing lies here. In the past, Five of Swords. So the past for past life incarnation is really the end of the person's life and what symbolized their life up into the end. Very much Jesse James, your money or your life. You know, he's a bank robber, or he's somebody who's going to come in the middle of the night and then burn down your store, or, you know, kind of kill the bank teller and take the money and run. And his power is through his willingness to use force and aggression and to murder if he has to get away with it and to take what he wants. And for the end of his life, this is how he dies also, because he gets stabbed in the back by somebody who is doing it for money, for greed. He gets taken down by the same type of person. And for Tucker Carlson, this is Tucker Carlson really just being angry all his life, it seems, to use the media as a way to enact his disgust for humanity. When I was reading his biography and the information about his mother, this bohemian artist, who is very interesting to read about, by the way, if you want to look her up, Lisa McNear. Maybe his whole life is to get back at liberal, what he calls snowflakes, progressives, because his mother left him and she was a progressive. She was a liberal. She was an artist. She was somebody who he is maybe his whole life trying to get revenge on, because he's of that primal wound of that rejection that defines him. And I believe his father is very much somebody that he modeled himself on with his conservative dress, and I think he wore a bow tie from a really young age, and the way that his persona is. But his whole life is getting revenge here. And the motive is money. Quid pro quo for both Jesse James and Tucker Carlson. Yeah, doing it for money. And the future for a past life reading is, again, what happened at the end of their lives, really, and what karma do they have to carry on into this life. And this is justice. So justice for Jesse James wasn't so direct, right? He didn't get caught and tried in a jury of his peers and hung out for all to see on a noose or something like that of that time. That's probably what would have happened. Instead, it comes through betrayal, through the bribery by the governor of the Fords, who end up assassinating the Ten of Swords, Jesse James. And that's a very high profile thing to do, right? Probably the most famous outlaw at that time, if not, for history. And then for Tucker Carlson, this is the future. The guides say that justice is coming. And I asked about this card. Is this applicable, the Page of Swords, as somebody who would betray him, for what's going to come up for him that's going to cause him this Ten of Swords, which is catastrophe, maybe an ending of his career. So I'm going to ask my guides, I'm going to use my pendulum, I'm just going to ask them to give me a better picture of this scenario. The guides say somebody is betraying him already to the FBI and to the January 6th committee. They're looking at all of these people that counseled Trump right up into the end, like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and those kinds of people. And there is some kind of catastrophe coming for him regarding the ending of his career or the diminishing of it. And I don't know who this is for him, but there is a betrayer. Maybe it's a reincarnation of Bob Ford, who knows? And somebody's there that's already betrayed him. The clarifying card, this is a Seven of Pentacles, and this is really just describing both of these men as opportunists. They're going to pick and choose to see what is going to be lucrative for them, and that is their stance. They're transactional, always transactional. And the outcome here is the Tower. So these are two men, Jesse James, involved in an insurrection and supporting the Confederate side of the insurrection, and also Tucker Carlson doing the same thing, interestingly enough. And as a result, they become outlaws. They're subject to a destruction of their own lives through their activity of involvement in an uprising here. Because you can see this man falling, you can see his bare butt, and that is the consequence of that for both of them. So that is my reading for Tucker Carlson and his potential past life as Jesse James. Nothing's written in stone that I say. This is just information I get from my guides, and then I start to research it, and then I lay it out for you, and it's something to think about. So I hope you enjoyed that. I am going to give us our oracle card, and this card that the guides gave me to give you is balance. Challenge helps you face and overcome fear. This challenge is a blessing that will in some way make you stronger and more resilient. Open yourself to the light of the world. Draw it into you. Be empowered by it. And channel it into your environment for the benefit of all. Face all that comes your way and trust your ability to make changes for the greater good. Balance. Okay, so that is my reading. I hope everybody is looking forward to Tuesday, which is going to be the next January 6th committee hearing that's televised. Also, I think my guides show me it's set in stone, but it looks that like Elon Musk has now publicly come out and said that he wants to terminate his acquisition of Twitter. And I guess people are holding their breath until it's actually finalized by the courts. Twitter is going to take him to court. I believe that they're just so angry at him. They don't want to make it easy for him. But that's it. And that's such a relief when I saw that, because he was going to destroy Twitter, and we need Twitter as a way to disseminate information for the 2022 elections and to get people out to vote. And it would have been a shame to see the wreck it would have become, or Trump back on it. And yeah, Trump is now off the board of Truth Social, and Truth Social is in a world of hurt. I would say, you know, this could be Truth Social too, this tower. Okay, you guys, I love you. Take care. I will be back next week. Let me know what you think about this reading, whether or not you agree. It's okay. I just am telling you what I hear. But people can have different opinions, and I don't mind. So I love you. Again, I will be back next week. Take care. Bye-bye.